are people everywhere. The snow is falling white and pretty as I stroll on my way to you. How you feel about packing up today? Leave this all behind. Go get snowed in somewhere. You and me. I would rather be somewhere with you, without TV or phone. Is it wrong for me to want you for my own? This Christmas, let the others miss us. Let's go get snowed in. Let's go get snowed in. How wrong could that be? Being snowed in somewhere, you and me. Let's go get snowed in. Let's go get snowed in. How wrong could that be? Being snowed in somewhere, you and me. Let's get snowed in somewhere, you and me.
Sleigh bells are ringing out by the sea, sending a message of love and sympathy. I've been waiting long. We'll meet you at the door this Christmas. Will be something unreal. Baby, I'm falling under your charm. All I ever wanted, got you wrapped up in my arms, and we'll stay up all night, and the fireside is blazing bright. This Christmas will be something unreal.
Hey everybody. Hi. Good morning. Oh boy. Woo. I've been beaten by the green screen here in Chicago. It beat me. I can't get it to work. Can you hear me? Yes. Let me know. Hi everybody. Hey, Merry Christmas. First time chat from Dee Brew Crew. Did you see the last show when we were imbibing adult beverages here? Brew Crew. I don't know. I'm just saying, I think you're in the right place. Just kidding. No, you're really in the right place. Sound good, everybody? Good heavenly days. You know, this thing is not the right thing. I have, hey, Caroline's in the chat. I'm so glad. I have, it's suboptimal here. Rusty Cat. I don't know. I'm kind of getting into like doing the intro, saying hi, and like saying hello to people, like, during the little chit chat. I just pulled my hair into a ponytail. Clearly, it's not. What does that look like? Does it look luscious? No. So, I've been up since about 5:30, and I really like getting up very early. For God's sakes. Okay, it's fine. Because it's a nice time of day. Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Karen. It's a great time of day to do reading, to write my journal, to write my manifesto, which I am writing. It's really coming together. I have some stuff to share with you. Eric, that was a good one. It's Eric blowing his nose. And that should be on the bingo card, by the way. Anytime Eric blows his nose, that's a quilt nerd bingo card moment. But Eric also got up this morning and we were chatting about different things. One of them being Omicron. And we talked about it today. And it's not good. I'm sorry to, open with this, but it's like, the UK, was it not the health minister, because he seems to be sort of useless, but one of these fellows said, he's been working on the pandemic since it began, and he's never been more scared, because it's just, it's not great. So I was reading, and things were okay, and then but I've been, I have so many things for you today, and part of what is exciting is that I have so much content for you. But what gets me in my feelings a little bit is when I don't have it just like perfectly arranged, So we're gonna I just need you to be forgiving, today, that I don't have things like we're gonna talk about Mary Gasperik, which is the maker of this quilt behind me, and she's amazing. She's amazing. We're gonna talk about her. I have lots to read to you about her, and she's just a legend, right? Legendary quilt maker, Hungarian immigrant, fabulous story, and so that's just the way it's going to be. And if I didn't mention anything about how I'm a bit discombobulated, maybe you'd never notice, but that's just not the way I am. I wear my heart on my sleeve. Ow, my heart's on my sleeve. So the one thing that's true as well is that we can really appreciate the green screen, can't we? Because, this is not ideal, The green screen is great. When it works, it's, like, so cool. Because you can see more of the quilt. I get to look like I know what I'm doing. It's great. It's great. Yeah. And so the thing is about Omicron, the reason that I have to mention it, on my Twitch... Hold on. I'm so proud of this form. I have to show it. On the Quilt Nerd content plan, announcements. There's info about on our Discord about the Boston exhibit and how I'm going with my mother on Tuesday. I'm slated to go on Tuesday to Boston to see the show on Wednesday. And this thing is like 70%. Is that right? 70% more infectious than Delta?
No, 70 times.
70 times. Oh, sorry, 70 times more infectious than Delta.
You don't just talk about the virus.
Eric has just instructed me not just to talk about the virus. Thank you, dear.
Do you have any other, inputs you need?
If I have any other, please, any input that you have on my show, just absolutely, just because I don't know. What am I? I don't even know what to say. We joke. We have fun. But thank you. So he might even be watching the show while he's telling me. So that concerns me, right? It really does. It concerns me. And Dee Marie, good morning, Dee Marie. It just put in the chat, it's best for immune-compromised people to consider everyone in a crowd is asymptomatic. This means you might be exposed more often than you think, indeed. NDH is saying it's fine. Sue, Quilting Politic, has the same worry. And hey, Caroline points out brilliantly that meeting here in Quilt Nerd is completely sterile. God bless you. That's a great point. So all I'm saying is, of course, I mean, it's just terrible news. It's terrible. The UK, right, is really getting bad there, and to think that it's not going to be that way here is ridiculous. And so, Eric and I couldn't get on a plane without a negative COVID test the day before. We take tests a lot when we're home, the PCR tests, the home tests. But we spend our COVID risk bucks wisely, we hope. Going across an ocean a few times in the past year, it was like we spent them pretty much, so we just don't do anyway. We just try to be as careful as we can and live our human lives, I'm not going to talk about the virus that much, but I am going to say that, depending on what happens, there's a chance, there's always a chance these days, right, that plans will change. They're not changing as of now. And the reason I even talk about this is not just like my mom and I might miss this exhibit. Some of you are going to join us there. That's why all this is relevant. Some of you are planning to join us, just to come along as we go to the exhibit. And so believe me, those of you who've been talking in the Discord about this will be the first to know if anything changes. But anyway, I had to put it, if there ever was a show announcement, that's one of them, You know what I'm saying? I've gotten my booster, and I don't know. You know what it is? It's a crack up, and it's not the good kind. So that's the scoop. And who likes to lead with like wah, wah, wah news, but it's just the way it goes. Okay, let's all have a very positive attitude and continue, because you know what? Okay, now let us, because Caroline was right. This is a sterile environment. And you know what? If things get hectic in the extreme, you know what we can do? We can do a show every day. What else can we do? I'm serious. Maybe I'll do like a Quilt Nerd marathon, just for something to do. And I can like be online doing this stuff for 12 hours or something. Yeah, that'll be really healthy. It'll be really good. Well, but that is something that we have, right? We have this little community, this little clubhouse, right? And that's really great because it is something that we can do safely, and protect other people. I'm just worried about the hospitals. That's a problem, It's a problem with the hospitals. Padma, good morning. And a good morning to you, Padma. And a Merry Christmas. Yes. Ah! What's happening? Someone's thing was buried, but someone gifted, but you know what I can do? I can tell right down here that Rusty Cat gifted a tier 1 sub to the community. You gave it to Jerry Cat. Jerry Cat, that's awesome. And I believe Jerry Cat in the last show gifted a Prime subscription to somebody else. So that's amazing. We give and take here. If you have a subscription, then you don't have to watch the ads. And I really appreciate you supporting the work I do on this show. I really do, spend time on it. And it's a pleasure because I love it. But if you had done what I did, wrestling with this green screen crap, you'd be like, somebody give that girl $5. Like, please give her $5. And so you can subscribe for $4.99 a month. Or if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can you get a free subscription to Twitch every month, because Amazon owns everything, including Twitch. And they will give you a free subscription. And you can use it on this show, which you should. Most of you, I don't know, a lot of the people watching this show here and on the playback. Oh, by the way, I gotta get my YouTube people piped in here. So a lot of people who are watching this show, pardon me while I look down and multitask here, are new to Twitch, including your host. I am new to the platform as well. I really like Twitch for live streaming. It's been a learning curve for everybody, including me, but that's okay. And so what I'm going to do, but right now I'm multi-streaming to YouTube as well. And that means that people can watch on YouTube if they don't want to mess with Twitch. I think you should watch on Twitch because you get to be involved in the chat, because I haven't figured out how to combine everybody yet. But I can look at who's there, and that's what I'm working on right now. I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, and I know how to do it. Look at me doing it. I'm going to say hi to everybody and check in, and then I'll tell you why we're even here, and then we'll look at this content. I'm already feeling better, you know. And I appreciate your support with the subscriptions. It's awesome. And this thing is growing quickly. You know, I have like 415 followers or something, which is really good. In 4 months of doing a show, it means people who weren't familiar with Twitch are coming over, checking it out. We have people who don't even make quilts who are into this show, because the show isn't just about quilts. You'll see. So Padma is here. Nancy, Word and Bird Nerd. I was up in the Discord last night, so I feel like I've been hanging out with my peeps. Padma is asking, and I would like to ask this too, can I put something on the screen? Everyone who's used Twitch before is like, yeah. But I haven't used it for very long, so I don't know. But one day I'll be able to highlight chats on the screen. I'm sure I can. Padma is asking a very good question. Padma is asking, no, okay, that's fine, Padma. That's fine, Mary, finding this thing. Okay, who presses their half square triangles open? This is like a timeless question. This is like a chicken and egg question for quilt makers. Do you press your half square triangles open? And who presses to one side so they can nest? Trying to decide which one is better. I'm not looking at anyone's answers. I'm not going to be influenced. 1000% press them to the side so they can lock or nest, indeed. I think it makes for stronger patchwork. Then again, that's the way my mother taught me. And sometimes you should do the opposite of what your mother tells you. I mean, I'm just saying. So my mom tells me really good stuff. That wasn't a dig. It was just me being sort of flip and just getting into the mood. Dee Marie says it depends on the project. Most of the time they're open. Interesting. I learned closed. The thing that's true about pressing seams open, and actually I remember, I do it to the side, but I have done it to the side, but I do also maintain, and have said before, and maybe it's been so long since I actually sewed patchwork on a machine that I forgot, but it's like my mom always said, you should press your seams to the side so that they will lock and it's stronger. Like your quilt top is sort of stronger that way, you know. Because if you press your seams open, you know, there's more chance for the patchwork to get separated, you know, and if you pull it apart, it would pull apart more easily. And I do remember thinking, who's going around pulling apart your patchwork? Who does that, you know? But what is true about pressing them to the sides instead of open is that when you go to quilt your quilt, you know, the chances that you would get bearding, one of the weirdest, slightly weird, creepy terms that we use in quilting, but you know, your needle could pull up some of the batting when the needle rises back up through the top. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have open patchwork, open seam pressed patchwork, there's more of a chance for that. You know what I'm saying? Don't you think? I think, because you have a little bit of space in between the pieces. What do you think about that? Think I'm onto something? I think so. But let me know. Okay, so see new messages. Scroll up. Gosh, wow. Okay. Oh, I did kind of highlight that thing, but just for me. Okay. So Yvonne, welcome to the chat. So glad you're here. I sent you a message on Discord finally. Cindy D, I'm so glad. You know, you live in a state where early evening doesn't work as well now. That's why I did this show at 11 a.m. And I think for as long as I'm home, I'm going to go for Thursday at 11 a.m. because all my UK peeps, it's 5 o'clock. It's the 5 o'clock hour. You know, and this is hopefully doable for you. So I'm hoping to see Marianne Tea Cake, and there she is. Ah, yes. Well, I am going to be on for a while, I think, because there's plenty to say, and if I'm not organized, it's going to take me a while to show anything. Marianne, I'm so glad you're here. And what I just mentioned is Thursdays will probably be at 11 a.m. because of this time change thing. I can't give all the United States people and the North America people and anybody in Mexico, you know, this time zones are... So, yeah, I don't want to, abandon ship, you know, for the London folks and the UK folks. So, Myra, you turned on YouTube. Here I am. Good morning. And a good morning to you. Lainey Lou, Merry Twitchmas to you. It's been a great month. I mean, it's been a great month. Yes, the Christmas music is here. Fiandor, I'm so glad. Yes, Twitch is up, and you're here, and Faith is here. Faith Quilts is here. Quilting Nancy presses to the side. Okay, there's lots of feedback about the house square triangles. Word and Bird Nerd, Caroline. Okay, good. Rusty Cat, yes. I'm catching up. And yep. I'm catching up in the... NDH says hello, Eric. Yep. Yes, the vaccinations are going to help. And yep. Yeah, this is a safe place. We can be in here. No worries. Okay, Marianne says, yep, there's discussion about the virus. That's good. I'm going to let people review that. So we're moving forward, Yeah, I know. Rusty Cat. Okay, I'm just looking at this. This is great. And Marianne is all for a live marathon because we can get a fresh audience every few hours as we travel through the time zones. That is an excellent idea and or excellent point. And if I start at like 6 a.m., I mean, maybe some people are like, you know what I need at 6 a.m.? I need Mary Fons in my face talking about, her life and her green screen. It might be true. Maybe you're getting, lunches together for the kids. Maybe you're having your tea. Maybe a 6 a.m. show is a really good idea. I might try that actually. Okay. Who else? Is SJ? SJ. Yes, SJ. Yes. Double bulk. She doesn't like the double bulk. I get it. Okay, I think I am caught up. If I missed you, it is definitely a mistake. Joyous Fibers is here. Okay, so here's the deal. Usually, if you just tuned in, some people just dropped in, green screen doesn't work. Usually, I've got it going on. I won't mention it again because there's more important things to talk about, but I will say that I have shame. Okay. I have crisps. They're barbecue. It's a little early for crisps, but maybe that's not a statement that needs to ever be said. We talked about announcements. So the show's about humanity, man. It's about a lot of things. It's about the world. It's about history. It's about art, and it's about people. It's about all these wonderful things that I'm really curious about, I mean, history and people and art are not always wonderful, but there's a lot of cool stuff to think about and look at in all of those areas of like life and the world, right? Okay, so but that's a lot. Like how if you're a curious person, how do you like study history? You have to have an angle. If you're interested in history, it's like, oh, cool. Well, what part of history, or like what time period, or like what are you talking about? You're interested in history? Well, that's a broad topic, and it's true. And so I grew up in a family where quilts were a very big deal, and I started making quilts like 14 years ago. Oh my God. And I really like making them. But what I figured out over the years of like looking at them and making them and teaching other people to make them and lecturing about them and being a magazine editor I edited 2 magazines all about them. I figured out that quilts are a great angle. They're a great angle for looking at the world, looking at art, looking at women's history, right? Definitely. American history, world history. America is my beat, though, I have to say. We look at world quilts here, but for the most part, what I know about is quilts made in America. So that's mostly what we look at, but the quilts are made all over the world. They're made by rich people, poor people, people in the middle class, people in the other classes. They're made by everybody, and they cross color lines and socioeconomic status and background and political persuasion, for God's sakes. I mean, everybody makes them. And so when you look at a quilt made in Alabama in 1964, you really learn a lot about Alabama in 1964. And like the Freedom Quilting Bee, this is a group of people, many of whom were involved in the movement. Alabama in 1964, this is a very interesting time of history, and so there were quilts being made at that time. Well, what were those quilts and who was making them, and how were they involved in the civil rights movement or not? It's like, oh, wow. So a quilt can take us there, and a quilt can take us to, 18th century England, to see, what were people, how were cloth imports changing the world? How was like the Industrial Revolution completely changing everything about the world? I'll tell you something. It used to be in England, in the 18th century and before, like getting chintz fabric, which is like like flowery, we've looked at this before. I'm talking to people who aren't really familiar with quilts, okay? Chintz fabric was really fancy. It was made in India, sometimes in France, in these different places, but it wasn't made in England. So all this fancy fabric, was imported from other places, and only really rich people could afford it. And so fabric was super expensive, especially chintz. But then, as the Industrial Revolution started, they started making that fabric in the next town over. And so the price of fabric dropped precipitously, from $5 a yard to about 5 cents a yard, within a period of years. That's crazy. And that says so much about world history and what was happening and how the world was changing. And wearing cloth, what was it? Someone just posted about it on the Discord, but you could go to jail for wearing cloth that was that was produced outside of England, wasn't that? Anyway, it's a fabulous story. I don't actually know enough about it to really talk about it, but I know that it happened. You could be put in prison for the clothes you were wearing, just because of the fabric. So it's it's really cool, it's really cool. And on our bingo card is whenever I say quilts aren't just pretty blankets, you get to put a thing. So there it is. Quilts are more than just pretty blankets, and if they were only that, I just wouldn't be that interested in them. But it's really true that they're so much more. And by the way, so I'm home in Chicago and I'm with all my books. Look how nerdy this is. So yeah, the show's called Quilt Nerd because obviously we nerd out about quilts. But this was expanding quilt scholarship. Lectures, conferences, and other presentations of Louisville celebrates the American quilt, edited by that power couple. They weren't a couple, but Shelley Ziegert and Jonathan Holstein. And this was published in 94. I was a sophomore in high school, not knowing that one day I would be sitting on a platform that didn't exist yet, talking about this book that I didn't care about at the time. There's so much scholarship. There's so much. The show will be on forever. If we're in lockdown for 5 years, oh God. If things get bad and we're all staying inside even more than some of us are already, and we got a lot to talk about. So that's why we're here. And thank you for joining a lot. I'm really glad. And be in the chat, talk to me. I'm here, looking at that. And yeah, it's fascinating, the cotton trade and all of this. So I'll check in as I can. Oh, and I'm saying hi to Doris and Sue out there in the YouTubies, and Faith Smith is out there too. I see you, and I'm glad you're here. Okay, so now I'm gonna get small. Help, I'm small. And we're gonna look at the quilt behind me. Usually, I'm not going to talk about the green screen failure anymore. I said I wouldn't. I'm not going to do it. But I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you the full. Don't read ahead. I'm really doing it. I'm going to show you the full picture of this quilt. Okay. And this quilt was made by Mary Gasperik, and it is called Road to Recovery. Okay. And I'm going to read to you all about this person, Mary Gasperik, today. And I have, like I said, just scads of pictures, loads of pictures to share with you, and just so many quilts and wonderful things. Mary Gasperik is a really interesting person. There's a few famous quilters, there's more than a few, but there's a few names that just kind of loom large because of their significance in terms of for example, this Mary Gasperik person who made a lot of quilts in the 1930s and 40s and beyond and before and stuff, but she was all over the media. She was in the newspapers a lot. She really was a name that kind of people knew. Bertha Stengi is another name like that. In more contemporary times, the Petway family from Geesman, Alabama, you see that name a lot. These are quilters who get noticed in the media. And Mary Gasperik was one of those people. And it's partly because she has an interesting history, life story. But it's also because her quilts were bananas good, okay? So I'm just kind of arranging a few things here so I can give you a nice blend. This is what I didn't get done while I was doing the green screen monkey business. I want to give you a nice blend of like pictures of Mary and quilts that she made. And one thing that you should know is that the quilt index, which we'll talk about too today, is whatever you want to know about Mary Gasperik, you will learn because the Quilt Index, which is an online resource brought to us by Michigan State University. Yeah. Oh God, University of Michigan. Oh Lord, how dare I? I'm having a moment that I can't. Oh, for heaven's sakes. Anyway, it's in Michigan. I'm so sorry. It's just shameful that I might have gotten that wrong, but it's been a long day. So we'll talk about the Quilt Index and fact check that for you. But they have so much scholarship done about that because Mary Gasperik, her granddaughter, Susan Saltzer, has been like a scholar of her grandmother's quilts. Okay, so we have a lot of really wonderful information about her. So what is this quilt? What is this quilt we're looking at? Road to Recovery is a quilt that Mary Gasperik made in 1939. Here we go. It is a quilt that was created for the World's Fair in New York City that year. I'm going to read to you here. And I'll zoom in on the quilt too, because you need to see some details here. So here is the entry in the Quilt Index for this quilt. Okay. All right. Mary Gasperik's original design to commemorate the 1939 New York World's Fair was made for a quilt contest, Better Living in the World of Tomorrow. That was the name of the quilt contest, Better Living in the World of Tomorrow. Like, of course it was called that, you know. She did not win a prize, but it is considered one of her masterpieces. Now, look at the quilting up there, okay? Do you see New York World's Fair, 1939? Bang. I mean, just gaze upon the quilting for a moment, right? And let me just make sure I can see the chat so I can see like all of you going, it's so good, right? So Better Living in the World of Tomorrow. She did not win a prize. Although she did not sign this quilt, she often said that the seated woman appliqued in the center of the quilt. Let me zoom out just a little bit so we can see like the scale, like where the seated woman is, okay? Okay. So Gasperik said that the seated woman represents herself. The pattern source for two of the applique elements in this quilt, a pair of robins in the lower left. Here are our little robins. And the brown wren at the right side of the tree on the right. Wow, all these details. Okay, hang on. Where's the wren? Oh, here's the wren. Okay. We have to zoom in on the border. We're going to look at every inch of this thing. It's bananas. Okay, and then the little wren. They've been identified, these birds. Gasperik traced them from illustrations by Fern Bissell Peet, published in popular books about birds printed in the early 1930s. So this woman is like tracing birds and rendering them in like perfect harmony. Gasperik not only traced the book's illustration outlines to create her applique pattern, she also duplicated Peet's detail through elaborate embroidery. Okay, I would love it if this picture was just like laser high res. It's pretty good, but it's good enough to see that like there's like this red embroidery around the birds, like the robin redbreast. Through her quilt. Okay, so this is more about this quilt written by Susan Saltzer. Okay, her granddaughter. Okay. So through her quilt, Gasperik, this is Saltzer speaking here, Gasperik interpreted the 1930s era as a journey along a roadway from depression to hope, then recovery. So check this out. So, and she's Chicago. She's a Chicago gal. Okay, so I'm like here for Gasperik. So here's Chicago down here. Okay, look, 1929. This is along the road. Okay, along the road. Myra, hilarious. Yes, exactly. Hey, right. Better living in many ways back then, right? So 1929, we go up the road. 1930, 31, 32, 33, 34, the nadir of the Depression, 33, 34, terrible. In Chicago, they shot the animals in the zoo for meat. That actually happened. Literally actually happened. 1934, 1935, 1936, okay? And you know, the Chicago World's Fair was in 1933. 1934, okay? Mary Gasperik also had a quilt in the Century of Progress exhibit, organized by the Sears Company, right? Which was a Chicago company. I just can't even talk. The Century of Progress is like one of my favorite things ever in quilt history. Maybe I'll do like a show, like a I don't know, benefit charity show. We'll talk about the Century of Progress like only for hours. But that, you know, this is for the New York's World Fair. Yeah, New York's World Fair in 39. So, I mean, she's like entering all these contests and like doing all this insane stuff constantly, you know, this quilt maker. Okay. Hungarian immigrant. We're going to learn more about her in a second. Okay, the journey's end in the quilt, back to Saltzer. The journey's end is depicted by the trilon and perisphere. God, it's like the world of tomorrow. The trilon and perisphere, symbols of the 1939 New York World's Fair. Mary Gasperik wrote her thoughts about her original design in Hungarian, translated as such, quote, "This dear old lady," talking about her quilt, "this dear old lady is trying to bear the trials of poverty inflicted upon her by the Depression. And in passing along with the years, she must stop." Oh, I cannot even. Sorry. "She must stop and rest to gather fresh courage to reach the world of tomorrow. Heedless of the traffic," okay, not cool, "only one thought persists in her mind: to attain her goal. The autumn leaves represent the poverty of the Depression as it touched humanity." God, it's amazing. "The birds are singing songs of encouragement. Beyond those mountains lies recovery. The New York World's Fair, 1939. Unquote. And that was translated by her daughter, Elsie Kruger. Okay. The trilon, Saltzer continues, "The trilon and perisphere, which appear on this and other New York World's Fair quilt contest entries, were the emblems." That's this stuff up here. Okay, I keep zooming in on it, but I'll leave it here for just a minute now. They were the emblems of the fair in much the same way the star Arcturus represented the 1933 Chicago Fair. We'll see that in a second. Mary's decision to represent the fair's theme, better living in the world of tomorrow, as an automobile road may have been influenced by the importance of the automotive exhibits at the fair. She had a strategy. And her devotion to the Quilt Club Corner, sponsored by the Detroit News. All of this is coming to you in just a minute. Back to this. The Ford Motor Company exhibit, which occupied the highest site at the fair, was called The Road to Tomorrow. An elevated highway. She was good. She's like, I'm going to put a road in my quilt, and they're going to love it. I won't interrupt anymore. An elevated highway more than a half a mile long. Yeah. Eric, are you hearing this? This is amazing.
I ain't hear nothing. I feel like
I'm what?
I'm going out.
You're hearing nothing. He's going out. Okay. The 1939 contest, sponsored by there's just a little bit more. Sponsored by Good Housekeeping Magazine and Macy's Department Store, New York. Now let's look at this border, like while I'm reading to you. Look at that border. Amazing. Attracted only 250 entries. What? Far fewer than the 24,000 that the 1933 Chicago World's Fair contested. I have not read this ahead. I did not know this. 250 entries, that's it? This may have been because the contest asked for original designs only to depict the New York World's theme, better living in the world of tomorrow, or it may have been the fact, the low entries may have been because the nation was turning its eyes toward a war in Europe. Oh, snap. Makes a lot of sense. Saltzer continues. The winning quilts and quilt makers were first place. First place was a quilt called Power. Awesome. By LCG Heller. I really want to see that quilt. I'll look for these. Quilt nerds everywhere. Look for these. Look. Okay, here's the link. Of course, it'll go into the Discord show notes. Wait, no, I'm not going to give you the link. I don't want you to read ahead. I'll put it in the Discord. A quilt called Power won first place. A quilt called Olive Branch won second place. I almost said a chick from Iowa. A woman from Iowa won. That third place was a woman from Washington State, Universal Progress. Interesting. Okay, yeah. Last bit here. Gasperik consulted a Paragon kit called Noah's Ark. Okay, so Paragon must have been... I'm gonna leave it on the whole thing here for this last paragraph. Gasperik consulted a Paragon kit, number 01005, called Noah's Ark, to fashion the winding road layout, which is the guiding design of the quilt. It should be noted that Gasperik used a similar winding road to design her Indians, that's the name of the quilt, Indians children's quilts, of which she made 7. We have images of those. It should also be noted that Paragon kit included patterns for 2 ponies and some elephants. Groovy. Gasperik added ponies of the same size and shape to the quilts of the family. Quilts, okay. Okay, she's talking just about... Although Gasperik never made an actual Noah's Ark quilt, she evidently made good use of the Paragon kit. Okay, so that's our opening quilt. Not bad, I think. And I don't always, do the intro quilt as like a introduction to the content. Usually I don't. The intro quilt kind of, exists on its own. But I mean, I was like, nah, we got to get to the good stuff, right away. Well, it's all good stuff. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so there you go. Now let's talk more about these quilts and who this woman was, okay? Civvy Mac says, I so wish I could just run my fingers across it. Absolutely. And, of course, we're all going to be like, oh, no, but I know exactly what you mean, and we all do. This texture, this fine texture up here. I mean, I can't get a regular, normal... quilt, when I quilted, I've quilted not that many of my quilts because I always mess them up. And I know that's not how I'm going to get better at doing it. But the lumps and bumps on just a pretty basic quilting pattern that I have achieved. I mean, this thing is flat as a pancake. And she didn't use a long arm machine, It's all hand quilted. So, yeah. Anyway. Just wait. This is just one of a whole bunch. Okay. Let me pull up some more stuff. Wow. Okay. As my hair dries more, it just gets more interesting. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to view this. Great, here's what it's all happening. This is all ready to go. We're going to open with a really wonderful picture of Mary and Susan. You're going to love this. This is great. Okay, I'm going to get small again. So that's Mary Gasperik there on the right. It's just darling. Civvy Mac has limited vision, so it helps you see the quilt better, right? If you can touch it. That's great. I wonder if that is something that you deal with, as a human being. It's limited vision, and you're a quilt person. Do you have the experience, Civvy, or does anybody else have the experience of if you're seeing a quilt, at a show or something, are you allowed to put on, a glove? Some people think plastic is better, or inert material gloves are better. Some people think cloth gloves would be better. Some people really don't think it matters that much if you touch a quilt with your hands. Of course, if thousands and thousands of people did, it would be bad. But have you ever asked for that? Has anybody in the chat ever asked for that and been granted permission to do that? Because you know what? It makes a lot of sense to me. Just a lot. Hey, Just So Viv! Just So Viv, I made the announcement, the promise, that Thursday shows are going to be at 11 a.m. Central, so that everybody, all my friends back home, back at my other home in the UK, can tune in. I realize it's really important, So Yeah, Padma, just everything is just perfect. Yeah, so this picture is lovely. I mean, maybe, if you feel like that's something you're comfortable asking, I mean, it makes sense to me that, somebody who wants to really see the quilt, right, in a close way should be able to touch it. I mean, okay. So this is Susan Saltzer, okay, and obviously her grandmother made that dress. Of course. And I'll show you this too. I wanted to pull up this is an article written by Meg Cox. We used this. So this is the issue 16 of Quilt Folk magazine. It was the issue of the magazine, incidentally, that we made when the pandemic descended and we couldn't travel in 2020. So this was issue 16, and I had to figure out with Mike McCormick, publisher of Quilt Folk, I was editor of this magazine at the time, and it was like, what are we going to do? Because Quilt Folk, if you don't know, it's a quarterly magazine. It's absolutely gorgeous. Here, I'll just show you how gorgeous it is. It's a quarterly magazine. There are no ads in Quilt Folk, and we go state by state, investigating, interviewing, talking about, the quilt makers of one state at a time, okay? And we couldn't travel. That was a problem. And we couldn't do photography, so we really had to figure it out. And what we decided to do was do an issue on a theme, not a state, but a theme. And the theme of family was what we did. And this is my dear friend Heather Kenyon's daughter, Julia, in their backyard. Amazing. Photographed by Azuri Watella, one of the best people who's ever lived, and lives here in Chicago. Okay, so we had to put this together, and it was just, everything was a nightmare, but we put it, it's one of my favorite issues of the magazine. It's incredible. We solicited stories from readers, and anyway, so one of the stories that we did was on Mary Gasperik, and we used this photo because, obviously, so this is the layout for that particular story, and Meg Cox wrote a wonderful article about her. Here are some more pictures we're going to look at, and we actually featured that quilt. Okay. So here we have this. So that is that. And I'm going to read to you from Mary K. Waldvogel's, Myra, I mean, yeah, that was a really, it's a special issue for sure. Well, you know what? Someday we'll just look at that issue of Quilt Folk. We'll just go through it because it's unbelievable. It's like, I don't know, like 28 stories from people all over the country, and what was cool is when we solicited stories for that issue, we understood who our readers were because the readers were sending in the stories, and our readers are just like amazing. They, just, it was, okay. So this is an article written and posted on the Quilt Index by, is it Mary? Hold on. It's pretty extensive, so I'm not gonna probably read all of it. I think Susan, no, this is Mary K. Waldvogel, okay, the great Mary K. Waldvogel, who's done a lot of scholarship, a lot of research on Mary Gasperik, obviously. So I'll start here and be flipping through these pictures. This is a quote. The essay opens with a quote from Mary Gasperik herself. Quote, "I came to America on January 6, 1905, and arrived in Chicago to my sister, Anuska." So that opens our scene, okay? The journey from Hungary set in motion a transformation from Mariska Mihalowicz, a teenaged immigrant arriving in the bustling city of Chicago in 1905, to Mary Gasperik, a middle-aged woman in 1936, beaming with pride as she stands with her fellow club members. Hang on, let me get that picture, because that picture is amazing. Her fellow club members in front of her, prize-winning quilt. Sorry, that's the wrong one. Hang on. I know where that is, though. I know where it is. I found it. Yeah, here. That's Gasperik right there, looking like the cat who got the cream. Is that the saying? Cat that got the cream? Clearly, quilts played a major role in Mary Gasperik's journey to find her place in American society. Mariska Mihalowicz arrived in Chicago from Hungary at the age of 16 in January 1905. Okay. I told you. Listen, I warned you. I was messing with some stuff, and it was hard, and so I got to do a little bit of that today. But it's all good. I know the material. While earning a living as a household servant, she met and married fellow Hungarian Stephen Gasperik, and Mariska is to the left. That's Mary Gasperik on the left. Okay, in 1905. That is her. 1905. And her sister, Elizabeth, is on the other side. And this, by the way, this was in the article, and I believe this was a Hungarian, it was at like a Hungarian festival in the Chicago Park District, and they were like showing their Hungarian like cultural dress and everything. So she and her husband Stephen, they moved to Burnside, a Hungarian immigrant community on the south side of Chicago, where Stephen later bought and managed a grocery store and ran a milk delivery business. Mary and Stephen raised their 3 children in the living quarters behind the market. Their kids were Stephen, Elsie, and Elmer. Okay. Oh yeah, cat that swallowed the canary. That's what it is. With her children grown, Mary discovered quilts at the age of 45. I forgot that part. She didn't start. We need I need to use my Stream Deck and have like we need like a police siren when things are like, whoa, that's not cool. And then like a, yay, like an applause button. Don't we? I'll get that. I'll get it going. Here, see, look. Show notes. Sound effects. I told you we'd be on for a while. I got nothing else to do. Interrupting myself. Okay, so she discovered quilts at the age of 45 when she saw the Sears Contest quilts displayed at the 1933 Chicago World's Fair Century of Progress exhibition. Bam. Soon after, she joined a quilting club at a neighborhood park, Tooley Park Quilting Club, where she received instruction, advice, ready access to the latest patterns, and an opportunity to display her handiwork at club exhibitions. She's like, I'm really good at this. I'm gonna need an exhibition, scene. The first year, she made 6 quilts, all carrying an embroidered reference to the 1933 Century of Progress exhibit. This is the best picture I have of this. This is an important quilt. Competing for prizes and displaying her quilts in public motivated her to work quickly. Over the next 33 years, she won many prizes and ribbons at exhibits sponsored by the Detroit News and at state fairs in Illinois and Indiana. Her applique and quilting caught the attention of the judges. However, when she entered an originally designed quilt, Road to Recovery, which we just saw, we know that one now, in the 1939 New York World's Fair contest, it was returned without a ribbon. Today, it is one of her most enchanting quilts. Okay, this quilt. Hang on. This one, it's called Star Arcturus. And hold on. I want to read. I have to find. Hang on. Gasperik. Hang on. Because it's the reason I pulled it up at this moment. Okay, this is Star Arcturus, and this is a little bit about this. Okay, just a little. The penciled block. So there's another image of this. Hold on. No. Here. The penciled block with attached fabric swatches. Okay. No. Okay, never mind. It's not what I thought. We're going back up. It's a beautiful quilt, and we're going to look at that again later. Okay, so that is Mary and her husband, Stephen, on their wedding day. Okay. Mary also enjoyed making quilts for her children and grandchildren, often using the same design, but making adjustments for each child's quilt. Fortunately, most of the Gasperik quilts are still held within the family circle. Her only daughter, Elsie, supported and encouraged her mother's quilt making interests as she grew older. Mary died in 1969. Elsie died in 1988. Before Elsie died, she distributed her mother's portion of the quilts among the 3 adult siblings. In 1991, this is Mary Gasperik, in the 60s, right? Because she died in 69. Before Elsie died, her daughter, she distributed her mother's portion of the quilts among the 3 adult siblings. In 1991, Elsie's 3 adult siblings, we're going to come back to that picture. Elsie's 3 daughters, Karen, Linda, and Susan, divided up the quilts that belonged to their mother. Soon after, they decided to try and organize an exhibit of Mary's quilts in California. That's where this picture was taken, okay, at this exhibit in California. And that little guy is Mary Gasperik's great-grandson, Dylan Gasperik, in 1992. Isn't that sweet? Okay. So in 1992, the grandchildren by then dispersed throughout the United States. They reconnected to display Mary's quilts in Livermore, California. They had the quilts professionally photographed and prepared a catalog. Look at this one. Ugh. That gingham. It's about as close as I'm going to get so we can, kind of see the glory of that one. Let's see. They photographed them and prepared a catalog with the information they remembered about the quilts. This is great. I mean, remember, the woman who, I think she's come up in the show since, during another show, I mentioned her, the woman who made the Easter quilt that's in the Fabric of a Nation exhibit, with the bats. I can never remember her name now. But remember what happened to her quilts? Do you all remember that? I mean, her quilts were like sold and like given away, and no one that they were definitely the same like level as this. Like Gasperik, what was her name? Can anybody help me out? This is what should have been done with her quilts, right? So like, thank you to the Saltzers and the Gasperiks and these people for doing right by this like genius artist, right? God, it's so, but I'm really glad they did it right, The family members that didn't travel to the show received catalogs and albums of the quilt photographs. So great. The family's appreciation for their grandmother and her quilts grew. Susan Saltzer, it's Saltzer. Sorry, I keep saying Saltzer, but it's Salser, Saltzer, embarked on a personal quest to research her grandmother and her quilts. Oh, look at that little guy. Oh, it's the great-grandson. And look, it's so cool. Look at those quilts. She started when she was 45. That's insane. It's a thing. The family's appreciation grew, and Susan Saltzer embarked on a personal quest to research her grandmother and her quilts. Her findings are now being shared with a much larger audience via the internet. Yeah, you don't say. Okay. The online collection of the Mary Gasperik quilts on the Quilt Index, okay, marks the first private collection of quilts to be incorporated into the Quilt Index. That's interesting. Granddaughter Susan Saltzer and other family members conducted meticulous and ongoing research into family accounts and published sources. This quilt is called Colonial Quilting Bee, and that's a quilt I don't have a year for, but we may get it here while we read. This passionate research effort has resulted in a rich set of stories and details about the quiltmaker's life and family, as well as nearly unparalleled depth and accuracy about the quilts and quilting patterns. What sets this collection apart? Mary Kay is talking about. What sets Mary Gasperik apart from other quilters and makes her, let me zoom in on this a little bit. I have so many quilts. I should go a little bit faster, but yeah, there's just so much to talk about with her. It's probably okay. So different, like a giant doily, says Little Bird Stitch. I thought the exact same thing. What a great story of her family honoring her, 1,000%. And Word and Bernard, I saw your comment too about what was it like to send a quilt off to another state. Back then, it's like no tracking number, no receipt of, yeah, that would be, it's scary now to send quilts in the mail, right? So while Vogel says, what sets her apart and makes her worthy of this like deep study are her expert needlework skills in applique, embroidery, and quilting. She was good at everything. Her quilts balance overall form and innovation with intricate detail and intricate and detailed handwork. Some of the images are better than others, but I love this quilt. It's totally cool. I had to include it. These Gasperik quilts are gems to examine up close, as well as from across the room. Sibby Mac. Moreover, hers is an immigrant story. Through the lens of her quilts, we gain a glimpse of her personal acculturation. Though she may have been isolated with limited English language skills, Mary Gasperik took something purely American and made it her own. We see how her American quilts are often embellished with Hungarian flowers, emblems, and flags. I know, Dee Marie, I'm telling you, there's a couple really high definition pictures in this little slideshow I've got where it's just, we can really see those details. Insane. I just love her. I don't know. I think she's cool. Okay. And you know what? It makes me feel really good. She started making quilts when she was 45. I got to be perfectly honest with you. You know, starting like a new project at this point in my life that isn't like in publishing, you know, in quilt related I'm talking about, but like, you know, there was a little bit of me. It's like, I'm too old to like start some like live stream. Like it's been done. I don't get into the whole I'm too old for this thing, but like Twitch and like live streaming. And it's like, I was like, I missed the boat on that. You know, like I should have done it before and it's like too late. And like, what do I know about this? And being live on the internet is just asking for trolls and like criticism. And I'm really sensitive and like, why? And it's like, no, it's so great. I'm so glad that this is happening. And like, what if I hadn't done it? You know, like it's just so much fun to do this. But like starting like an online show on Twitch at, you know, in my 40s, like, you know, and it was like, what if it doesn't work? It was like Mary Fons is streaming on Twitch. Like, okay, what is that even? You know, and there is some of that for sure. But like, it's heartening to hear it when somebody is just like amazing at something new, you know, later in life, whatever. Okay, so this is the exhibit again. Oh, and look at this like triptych. I have the name for that quilt. I believe, let me see here now, because I've got a single picture of it. There's so many, I'm not worried about you reading ahead because there's so many images that there's no way you can keep track of these. I just like to surprise you. Yeah, okay, it's called Indiana Wreath, I believe. Indiana Wreath? Yeah, Indiana Wreath, 1930. It was made between 1930 and 1949. That's the best they got. Like it was started in 1939 and, you know, and finished 1930 and then finished by 49. But apparently she made 3. She made 3 because, I love it, Myra. I love what you just said. She made 3. And this, so we'll talk about this, but this was what she kind of based. So that's Indiana Wreath. So Mary Gasper, as we'll see, used a lot of patterns and like illustration, you know, took inspiration from different patterns like she did with the Road to Recovery thing, right? She used this Noah's Ark pattern to like get that road going, but she always riffed. It was like, cool, I'm going to take that and do something different with it, which she clearly did by not only making the quilt awesome, you know, making 3 of them. Insane. Okay. And her, yes, but thank you, Bertha Maxstroth. Bertha Maxstroth is the woman whose quilts were sent to different places and are like lost to time. Thank you. The least we can do is like say the name of the woman, right? Bertha, we're so sorry, you know? Oh my God, look, there's Road to Recovery. No, yeah, like look back there. You see? I didn't notice that before. That's Road to Recovery back there. There it is. Oh man, this show. Oh, I bet Mary Kay Waldvogel has seen a lot of awesome pictures from the family, you know. Yeah, Jinx. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Oh, look at that. So, hang on, I gotta wet my whistle. What makes her quilt, this is Wald back. What makes her quilts valuable to quilt historians is that the 80 quilts that she made, 80, were made by one person in one community during a specific time period. The fact that her hometown was Chicago, site of the important and influential World's Fair in 1933, and home to many companies that published the quilt catalogs and needlework patterns, which fueled America's resurgent interest in quilts, make her quilt epiphany at the fair and ensuing career all the more significant. It's so true. And Chicago was a huge publishing, it was like it was a publishing place, I used to live down on Printers Row. She incorporated and experimented with just about every quilt design source available to her. Nancy Cabot, there was a quilt column in the Chicago Tribune for years, Nancy Cabot. And Gasperik was like eating it up. We can approximate the dates of her quilts by examining the sources of her patterns. Oh yeah, totally. That makes total sense. And searching for those patterns or kits in dated advertisements, newspapers, or copyright booklets. This is a quilt show. Obviously. It's from the Detroit News. All of these pictures, by the way, all of this material comes from the Quilt Index. So, I don't know when this was taken. It's in the Detroit News. I did my best getting all this stuff together this morning. It's all findable. It's all investigable. But this is from the Detroit News, and that's one of Mary's quilts right there. So what Wald is saying, it's good timing for this picture, is so much of her stuff was in the media or in shows or won awards that her whole life story in quilts can really be traced. So great. And because of her family. Susan Saltzer remembers tall stacks of quilts and needlework-related popular magazines and catalogs in the dining room, which was Mary's quilt workroom. Mary paid close attention to the latest in quilt ideas and fashions. Okay, we can come back to that. That's a little different. Mary paid close attention to the latest in quilt ideas and fashions, providing further clues to help decipher the order in which she made her quilts. Padma, brilliant. You asked why she would make the 3 wreath quilts, and Padma just confirmed she had 3 children, so she made one for each. Probably, right? This story proves how important those boxes under the bed are. Quote unquote, boxes under the bed. This story, the story of Mary Gasper, proves how important those boxes under the bed are. Yeah, we're going to come back to that. Quilt makers often leave a paper trail to follow. In Mary Gasper's case, her box included correspondence with Edith. Look at this. This was a quilt for one of her children or grandchildren, or a child. In Mary Gasper's case, her box under the bed included correspondence with Edith Crum of the Detroit News. Interesting. Photos of her quilts on display at Thule Park, prize ribbons and quilt caption cards, stencils, hand-drawn applique and quilting designs, and much more. So then, okay, I wasn't wrong about that other quilt. So then Mary Kay Waldvogel talks about how she met Susan Saltzer and was working with Barbara Brackman, how all of this happened. And since this is pretty long, I don't know that I think I'm going to skip part of this, but I am going to go to this quilt the Star Arcturus, because it's mentioned right here. Okay, this quilt. I knew there was something about this. But Barbara Brackman and Mary Kay Waldvogel wrote the book Patchwork Souvenirs, which was all about the Century of Progress exhibit, the quilt exhibit in 1933. And so Mary Kay says, when Barbara Brackman and I were collecting background stories and quilts for our book, Patchwork Souvenirs, we chose Susan Saltzer's, Susan Saltzer had this quilt, this one, called Star Arcturus, Century of Progress, which was made by her grandmother, Mary Gasper. Although the quilt was not made for the contest, the pattern was a published pattern that commemorated the 1933 World's Fair. And so this was actually sort of part of the Century of Progress exhibit that toured, even though it wasn't a Century of Progress quilt. But I just love this quilt. I remember seeing this early in my quilt nerdery, and I was like, that's amazing. That quilt rules. Look at the moons in the corners, like the sort of very 1930s style illustration, and the quilting is amazing. Hey, Naflinster, thank you for subscribing. You're a subscriber for 2 months, and I really appreciate you. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me and the community. It's great. I appreciate you. Okay, so let me get back to a little bit this. Okay, a little bit of this. Let's just look at some more quilts. Okay, we're gonna get back to what's going on here. Here's one. This is a very famous quilt. I think this is pretty high res. Yeah. So this is called Hungarian Harvest Festival. It was made in 1940. It's a really famous one. And so, you can see like she was incorporating her Hungarian heritage into a lot of her quilts, sometimes like explicitly, sometimes sort of, in decorative details, but obviously Hungarian Harvest Festival is a direct nod to her heritage. It's amazing. Okay. Let me zoom in a little bit on this. Look at the dog, the embroidery there. It's just so great. It's so great. And the quilting and this layered border. I mean, no one's going to admit it, but like surely people out there in the chat. I mean, Kevin at the Philly Modern Quilt Guild, you've seen some of his stuff in the making channel. I mean, I caught up on all of your projects and things that you've posted in the Discord so far, everybody, and they're just amazing. They're amazing. So let me just say that. But like, Kevin showed something that he did recently, and I mean, it was really, I was like, whoa. The Paducah Best in Show kinds of quilts. Like this is a Paducah Best in Show kind of quilt. You know what I mean? Where it's just like intensely detailed, literally perfectly, executed kind of quilt. Do any of you do that kind of thing? I mean, has anybody won awards at Paducah? I'm just wondering because like, I'm just in awe of this kind of thing. And it's like, we all are because it's so amazing. But like, is there people out there who do this really, really fine, kind of show quilt work? And definitely okay to say so, if you do. I'm just curious about it. So this, I think I showed this little quilt. There were a couple versions of this little farm quilt that she did. Okay, we looked at this now. Okay, this one, you might recognize the little great-grandson was standing in front of this one at that show. Hey, DD Brew Crew, subscribed at Tier 1. Thank you for subscribing. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. That's totally great. Yes, sewing. Karen, yes. Her daughter's name was Karen, right? Is that what we said? Hold on. Yes, her daughter, Elsie. Okay, no. So it was her granddaughter. Yeah, Karen, Linda, and Susan. So Susan Saltzer, right? Karen was also a granddaughter of Mary. So, yeah. So you've got your name on a Mary Gasper quilt. It's pretty good. Okay, so Mary Kay is talking about, working through the collection. I'm going to go to I'm just going to keep showing you quilts, and I'm going to read you something a little bit different here. Okay, hang on. The quilts, in this collection, so this is from another piece in the Quilt Index. Thank you so much, Quilt Index. This is from a little bit of Susan Saltzer, her granddaughter writing about her. Okay, so the quilts in this collection, reflect her artistic development from neophyte quilt maker to prize-winning quilt designer. So this is a clip from the Home newspaper. Okay, I'm not sure. Gathering all this content. Some details are missing, but look at this. This says, Chicago quilt arrived late. This quilt, which contains 1,467 pieces, is a copy of one made in 1835 and has pieced and applique blocks alternated. It is in black and white print and plain white material. I have a picture of this quilt, or at least a version that Mary Gasperik made. And that quilt is right here. Right? Isn't that what we just saw? So that's Mary's version of that. Right? Isn't that right? It's just crazy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you see she was like taking patterns from, newspapers and all this stuff and working through them. This is her variation of it. It might be a copy of it that's pretty faithful to that picture. That might, I don't know. Just amazing. Mary sought out others for lessons and advice. This is Saltzer again. She used commercial patterns for patterns and quilting designs, but also ventured into making her own original designs. She entered contests and garnered the most praise from the Detroit News quilt columnist Edith Crum. Oh, and then Saltzer says here she made about 100 quilts. Okay. Quilt documentation. Okay. Oh, there's a research update. Oh, in March 2021. Hold up. Let me get right back here. There's a research update, people. This is great. Look at this. It's unfinished. That's insane. It's called Giant Dahlia, 1935. I mean, really? And there's descriptions. All the quilts in the quilt index by Mary Gasperik. There's pretty extensive records, descriptions of these quilts and some more information about them. And what I read about this one as I was gathering things was that Mary really liked rectangular quilts, which we can see. And the pattern she was riffing off of for this was square. And the record said this caused problems. Like she was trying to, make the rectangle quilt from a square design. So it's pretty funny. So human, right? That she was like, I'm putting this, I gotta work on something else. This is not happening for me. And here, this is a layout here of this from the Detroit News, this Laurel Wreath quilt, which Mary made a version of it. I have a picture of here in just a minute. So check this out. This is a research update. In March 2021, I've not read this, what's going to happen? A previously unknown plastic box containing 40 Gasperik quilt ribbons. All right. I was wanting more quilts, was given to the family. Oh my God, 40 Gasperik quilt ribbons were found in March of this year. These 40 include a 1940, we saw that. Wow, look at this. Wow. 1940 and 1941 ribbon from the Indiana State Fair, honorable mention ribbons from Detroit, and 5 other ribbons ranging from a rosette blue to a 4th place. We saw this one with her friends. 4th place pink from Detroit in 1940. The other ribbons are Illinois State Fair. Amazing. Wow, that's so cool. This is like a utilitarian quilt that I found. So this is like just like a let's use this quilt for sleeping. This is, the Detroit News again. So interesting. This is really crazy. It's a detail shot, I guess. At first I thought this was the whole quilt, but it's not. Oh, actually, I think I know what it is. Oh, it's that gingham one we saw. It's the gingham one, And Marianne says show quilts are a whole other ballgame. The rules, the competition, the standards. You got to be committed to it wholeheartedly to do what I do. You do that. You enter quilts into, you do competition quilts. Marianne, I didn't know that. Interesting. You do it to get feedback from the judges when you don't win because you're not going to win. Interesting. I'm so glad that I asked because I didn't know that about you, Marianne. I need to look at people's social media and stuff. I'm sure that you have those pictures up and I should be looking at them. That's really cool. That's good to know that it is kind of a different, there's like making a quilt for a show and it's a different approach and that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I've got a few more here of Mary Gasperik, and then, something completely different. I'll take a brief break and then come back with some other stuff. Now, this one looks like the other one we saw. Is that because we saw the quilting bee there's a Colonial Sewing Bee and a Colonial Quilting Bee, and we looked at the Sewing Bee, which was different, had a different center. Check this out. I never noticed this. Look, that Star Arcturus motif is in the corner. That's crazy. And look at these harps that were quilted into the quilt. I'm overwhelmed. Look at that American flag. Is that like Betsy Ross or something? Betsy Ross, I think there's a whole thing that Betsy Ross, it's not a quilt, if Betsy Ross made the flag, but that's a very Betsy Rossian kind of moment there. Is that the Hungarian flag? I bet it is. Do you think it is? That's really cool. I just love it. I love that she made 100 quilts and she started when she was 45. It's bananas. Oh, I gotta check on my YouTube friends. Hang on. YouTube friends, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I missed some of these. Kathleen, I'm so glad you're here from Minnesota. That's awesome. Doris used to hand quilt from the 70s to the 90s, but you learned how to machine quilt and you just didn't have the patience for it anymore. Makes total sense. Big stitch quilting. Yep, Sue Horn is doing big stitch quilting. Yeah, Doris hasn't tried it, but you totally should. It's really fun. It's so much fun. It's true. Phyllis and, yes, Phyllis is in the YouTube chat. I'm so glad you're here. Sorry, I was neglecting you there for a minute. Oh yeah, okay. That's the original. Maybe Mary Gasperik did make that one that said quilt arrived late or something, because this is in the quilt index for her too, but I don't know for sure, so we need to know that we don't have everything just right. Oh, I want to skip that because that was something else. So here's the Laurel Wreath. Is that right? Yeah, Indiana Wreath, which we saw earlier that there are three of. Yeah, I know. I don't think. Oh, so amazing. I don't think show quilts are in my future, but I mean pictorial quilts. I think I'll be happy making pictorial quilts the rest of my life. Do you remember this? I'm just going to skip back. Right? So that was inspiration, clearly, right, for this quilt that she did, the Laurel Wreath quilt. Yeah. Yeah. And the name of the game on this show is that I pull stuff together and I might be wrong on some of the stuff. This is not like, scholarly, I mean, it's nerdy, right? But it's not scholarship necessarily. So, if I'm wrong, and I happen to know that Susan Saltzer, thank goodness she's super, she's very particular, she knows so much, and she is like sort of the steward of all of this stuff, and she really cares about it. And so like if she would see this, I don't think she's going to, but if she would see it and I'm like, this was probably the inspiration for that quilt, and if I'm completely wrong, like, I know, and this is not something that you should be, looking at if you're writing a paper on Susan Saltzer. Or on Mary Gasper. Talk to Susan. Don't listen to me. Okay, look at this one. Oh, yeah, this one is the Colonial Sewing Bee. So this is like the same kind of setup as the other one we just saw, the Colonial Quilting Bee, but this one has a different center. I don't know. It's the first thing I've seen from Mary Gasper that I did not totally on board with. But I don't know. It's fine. Okay. I mean, there's just so many. I mean, it's just one after another of like, oh, well, this is the second to last one that I have, actually. Just amazing. Just amazing. Ugh. Hand applique? Which one? Let's see, SJ. Hand applique? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, of course. It was like all hand applique, because this one, 1937 to 1945, it was made between 1937 and 1945. Hand applique for sure. Sitting at that big frame. I mean, look at this. See, now that we've seen more of her quilts, this picture is just like amazing. And that's the Hungarian Harvest Fest, I think. I think that's the quilt she's working on. I mean, forget it. She's amazing. Oh, and this myth that quilt makers like in the olden days like would make quilts by the firelight. And there's like paintings I've seen of like old ladies like quilting by fire, like the light of the fire or a candle or something. That's like completely ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. Before you had electricity, you would quilt in the daytime or outside when the sun, you need light, for heaven's sakes. It's like, and I'm not saying Mary Gasper was living in a time when there wasn't electricity, because that is not the case. But you sew by a window. You make quilts by a window, not by the fire, for many reasons. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's a crack up. Okay, and then I've got one more quilt. I don't know, though. I had this, I pulled off all these images into this folder, and this was like near the folder. I think this is a Gasper. It's hanging at a show. Maybe it's from that show, but I can't be totally sure. So let's not end on that. Let's end on the road to recovery, where we began our show. Right there. Okay, so that's Mary Gasperik. I think, yeah, Mary Gasperik, really good stuff. I hope you enjoyed that part of the show. And now I'm going to take a quick break, and I'm going to come back with something completely different, because that's what I really like. I really like to have dynamic content for you. It keeps me interested. It keeps you interested. And that's what we're going to do. So I've got some Christmas music for you and the Be Right Back screen. Take 5. Be right back. Ooh, where's music? Hello, I'm back. And I do need to have a crisp. See, now it's 12:39. It's time. Let's see. So, how's it going? I figured the show would be a little longer today because it's the morning, you know. I'm not going to get tired. Well, it's not the morning now, but yeah. I've got a couple more things for you to share. I'm going to share a few more things with you. So, if you're just joining us, this is Quilt Nerd. We nerd out about quilts because quilts are the whole world, really, when you look at them closely, thoughtfully. And the next thing here is something that came via one of you. And I don't have written down who it was who posted this in the Discord. One of the great things about our Discord, and if anybody wants to put an invite link into the chat, that'd be great. And by the way, Discord is new for a lot of us too. You know, I don't mean to paint us as like these plebes, these Luddites. Because quilters aren't, you know, we have all of our gear and we're super technically advanced. And my mother was the first person I ever knew to get an iPhone, like right when they came out. Anyway, but there's all of this new stuff all the time. And like Twitch was new for a lot of us. Discord is new, not for everybody, but anyway. So the Discord thing is just basically where we hang out when the show isn't on. And you can post pictures there of the stuff you're working on. And I love getting tips for the show, content for the show. And I mean, that's part of what I was doing last night because I wasn't streaming. And I have to not stream too much because there's all this other stuff I have to do for the show, right? So it was good that I had no stream last night so I could focus on like getting through a lot of the Discord, like wonderful suggestions, sort of filing them in my way. So yeah, join the Discord if you haven't yet. We'd love to have you. So this was a suggestion from somebody. So if you're at the show right now and you are like, oh yeah, I posted that, then you have to say so because I want to tell you. Such a great Thursday, right? Oh, Ivana, I'm completely with you. I'm totally same. So this, if you've ever been to London, perhaps you live in London, perhaps like me, sometimes you live in London, or if you're a quilt maker, lots of people know about Liberty of London. Liberty is a store. It's a store, but it's so much more than a store. It's a store, but it's a department store, but it's also a place. It's like an emporium. It's a place of wonder. Like any department store you've ever been to, like it's just better. It's like, for example, some of the, and it's been there a long time. I'm not sure how long I could pull up more about Liberty, and we should because there's so many quilting connections with Liberty, but the person who started this store was Mr. Liberty, okay? He started it with his wife. And much of the facade that is the Liberty facade was used with ship material, wood from ships. It's very London. I should show you more pictures of it. Hang on, because now I want everyone to see Liberty of London. It's just a really, really famous place. It's an historic place. They do a lot more than just like, they do a lot more than just sell things. And they sell very beautiful things. Okay, Liberty is not cheap. It's not a cheap place to be. Here's pictures of Liberty. It's not, yeah, they don't sell things. Things don't go on sale that often. I've noticed that, sadly. But they have also produced fabric for a really long time because Mr. Liberty was a merchant. This is all from what I remember. I got a personal tour last year. Mr. Liberty was an importer of fabric, and William Morris, the famous artist, the arts and crafts, William Morris, was a designer for Liberty, an in-house designer, because they started making their own textiles, designing their own textiles. And so Liberty and textilians have a long history together. So there's a lot to say about Liberty. I mean, when was it founded? I feel like it's like 1846. I don't think that's true. Liberty of London founded. Oh, it's on Regent Street. I bet somebody corrected me already. Regent Street. I think I said Oxford. Oh, 1875. Okay. 1875. Sorry. And it's just magic. It's a magic place. It's got wooden stairwells and wonderful things. And you can buy fabric there in the haberdashery, Liberty of London haberdashery. Now, my good friend Jenny Smith, friend and colleague, works with Liberty Fabrics. Liberty Fabrics are famous. I should just do a whole thing on Liberty. All right, we will. That's what we will do. That's what we will do at some point. Well, what I want to show you for now is a really cool quilt that was pointed out to me. It's a Liberty-related quilt that was made in 2015. So, sorry, my friend Jenny Smith works with Liberty Fabrics. She wrote the book on the book on Liberty Fabrics. Someone else wrote a book about working with Liberty Fabrics, but Jenny worked with Liberty to make this beautiful book that you should buy, and it has wonderful patterns in it and quilts made with Liberty Fabrics. So she's sort of like the go-to Liberty gal. She's a brilliant quilter, a lovely person. She's the person I did the Bronte workshop with. So that's Jenny Smith. She's the Liberty gal. So I was looking at the Discord, and there was this awesome story, okay, from 2015. Let me see what you all have to say about Liberty here. The new print, Word and Birdner mentions that the new print of the store, because they come out with new prints every year, a couple times a year now, I think. It's like $45 a yard. This is rough. It's rough, man. But Dee Marie says it's worth it. For certain projects, it's like totally worth it. Purveyors of fine goods. Yes, Marianne is our Londoner. You can buy it on Etsy and stuff like that. It's like a hot commodity. Okay, hang on. So let me get my little slideshow. Here we go. So this is really sweet. This girl made a hold on. Made a quilt in 2015 for Liberty. And of course, the tattoo thing we already did. Unfortunately, unfortunately we didn't have this quilt for the tattoo show. But because it's like very much a tattoo inspired quilt, and I'm going to read to you about it and who made it. This is like the best tattoo quilt example I can think of, or that I've ever seen. The person who made this, and the reason it's connected to Liberty, is because in 2015, Liberty celebrated its 140th anniversary. And this is an article I'm going to read to you. What does it come from? It's from Embroidery Magazine in July, the July-August issue in 2015. And it says, quilting the anniversary. When the famous London department store, Liberty, wanted to commemorate its 140th anniversary, it turned to 3 artists to create celebratory quilts for its windows. Okay, so this is just one of those people today. The London department store Liberty celebrated 104 years this year, by 2015, by commissioning 3 textile artists to make celebratory quilts for its window designs. Okay, the store was founded in 1875 by Arthur Lazenby Liberty. Originally, the shop specialized in Oriental works of art, that's right, but soon expanded to sell European furnishings and clothing designed by the likes of CFA Voisey and Archibald Knox, Liberty's brand of fashionable arts and crafts, and later Art Nouveau design, marketed at affordable prices, meant that the shop prospered, and by 1924, new premises were required. Okay, so there's more about Liberty. Liberty is very cool. Coach bags have used Liberty fabrics as like a collab. David Bowie, I think on the cover of one of his albums, is wearing a Liberty print shirt. Like it's a whole thing. So here's the deal. This is actually important. It leads into this whole thing. So it needed a new premises when in 1924, and these were built on Great Marlborough Street by the architect Edwin T. Hall in an unashamedly over-the-top mock Tudor style. Okay, that's this. Complete with Hampton Court-style chimneys and mullion windows. The striking black timbers were sourced from Castle Shipbreakers, a company specializing in recycling old wooden ships made obsolete by the introduction of ironclad ships, and came from HMS Hindustan and HMS Impregnable. Okay. So the naval connection was the inspiration for the commission's breezy aesthetic with its witty and self-consciously contemporary theme of sailors' tattoos. Okay. And the person who made this quilt, strange that they have not said so yet, it's Louise Gardiner. Gardiner. Gardner, maybe just Gardner. And she is in Cheshire. And this is some of her sketches here. And this is a great detail shot of that center. So, it's piecing, it's embroidery. I just think it's so great. When I saw it in the Discord, I was like, well, I got to talk about it. We got to talk about it. Karen Nickel was one of the quilt makers. And then Eric's blowing his nose. And it says, let's see, Gardner is constantly pushing at the boundaries of traditional embroidery in a bid to update the medium for a 21st century audience. Quote, I want to avoid anything too pretty and to make embroidery a bit rock and roll, she says. So there she is. I just love this. There she is in the window of Liberty of London, looking ridiculously adorable and with that fabulous quilt. So that's the thing. And I'll put the link in the Discord so you can check it out, read more about it, and look at the other quilts. But I just loved it, and we've talked about tattoos, so now we've talked about them again. So yes, William Morris. Rusty Cat is known. So Rusty Cat says the fact that William Morris was part of the arts and crafts movement for the creation of beautiful, useful items makes me feel the question of whether quilts are art or craft, or that there is a different value placed on them. Does that make sense? And yeah, I mean, the arts and crafts movement was kind of a broader term. It was this school of thought too about like how things should be made and what things were valuable. Like one of my favorite quotes of all time is William Morris, who said, bring nothing into your home, and I may be paraphrasing a little bit, but he said, bring nothing into your home that you do not find to be beautiful or useful. And I mean, I really live by that. Like, this might sound really snotty, but I hate plastic, like, mixing spoons. I hate spatulas, but they're useful. See? They're useful. But, like, if it's not beautiful in some way, and, a bottle of, like, soy sauce can be sort of beautiful, but it's useful. Like, don't bring crap that you don't need or stuff that you just find ugly into your house. Like sometimes, like I was at Costco at one time, and there was a very useful box, like a sort of a paper, like a storage box, it was like the perfect size for what I needed. I forget what it was that I needed, but it had just a really unattractive, like, damask print on it. It's like, that damask print that was just everywhere for a long time, and it was like pink and white, and it was damask. And it was like, it was almost okay, but it was ugly. It was ugly to me. And I was like, no, I do not want to look at that box for the rest of my days or as long as it survives. I think it's ugly. I don't want it in my house. I don't want to bring it into my house. It was almost okay, but it wasn't. And I was like, no, this is my house. I don't want it. I don't want it. So I just used like a cardboard box, which is not beautiful, but it is useful. And it's sort of beautiful in its cardboard box way. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so the arts and crafts movement was it was this aesthetic, and it was about, art and craft, whatever, but they were really equating the two, I think, as being, they were equal, I think. I mean, they were talking about furnishings, chairs, and all these things being artful craftsmanship. So anyway, that's what I've got to say about arts and crafts movement. Not a lot, but okay. Oh, there's lots of good discussion about Tanalon and Liberty fabrics and things. Absolutely. Yeah, the Tanalon is beautiful. Rusty Cat, I think it's a good philosophy too. Okay, so the last thing I have for you is I'm a little, I'm excited to show it to you, but I'm also aware that it's really provocative. And I guess I'm showing you because I kind of want to get some feedback. And I don't know, I don't know if if the feedback is like if maybe I'll still do it. I don't know. But I'd really value your opinion, so I'd like to know what you have to say about it. So here's the deal. So I'm working on my manifesto. I mean, it's really coming together. It's happening. And I'm going to read it on a video and post it to YouTube as well, because I can't, my feelings about the quilts being cut up to make into clothes is an emergency at this point. It's an emergency. And I can't just make a manifesto and pass it out to quilt people at QuiltCon, which is the plan, and sell it here to the quilt nerds, It needs to be that we're not the problem, really. I'm going to make this video and I'm just going to read the manifesto basically so I can be on script and not deviate too much or go on tangents. It needs to be clear. So I'm going to read the manifesto just very plainly to the camera and post it on the interweb. And so I'm working on that, and I was thinking about images for the manifesto. And I thought for a while, one of my notes from a long time ago, let me get big. One of my notes from my early research was a question to myself. It was like, can I get anybody, any like prominent modern quilter, like Sarah Bond or Sherry Lynn Wood or, somebody to cut up one of their quilts to make into a jacket. Because I think there's this idea that it's quilts that are old, that are fair game. They're, dead stock. And it might drive home the point that this is really not okay if we had a quilt that was sort of among us, a contemporary quilt that is like fresh and has a person that we can see associated with it. It might be really effective to have that. Like, I could even wear it, maybe. I mean, can you imagine like wearing a quilt made by Sarah Bond that had been cut apart? Like, do you know her quilts? Like, they're like Mary Gasperik, right? A Mary Gasperik quilt. Like, if Mary was making quilts today, I'd be like, let me cut up the Road to Recovery and, wear it as a hat. And so I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, I'm not going to actually ask anybody to do that. I might. I mean, I could, but it's getting a little close to the show time and everything. And I realized I didn't have to ask, because I could make my own illustrations of this kind of thing and then save. And then I would not have, any quilts being destroyed in the name of this thing. So, oh, great. Okay, good. Rusty Cat's got the actual quote. So, so part of the aesthetic for the manifesto is, it's that zine style, that 90s like fanzine style, which is like photocopied, and that's what I want it to look like. I'm not going to spend, I'd love for it to be printed up really beautifully in like a letterpress kind of moment situation, but the time is not going to serve that, and it'd be super expensive. I mean, I want to print like 500 of these, I guess, 500, I don't know. And so I'm really going to do it like at Kinko's, and like staple them. So the art that I'm not good at making, I'm not good, I don't have Photoshop. I use a program called Acorn to do very rudimentary things with images, and I use this wonderful program, canva.com. Changed my life. It's what I use to make the thumbnails, and I do a lot with that. I just am so grateful for that program. They're great. And so between the two, I decided that Acorn and this Canva thing, I was like, I took pictures of models, in particular, I'm not going to say the name. There's one particular company that makes clothes out of quilts that is particularly galling to me, because the company sells these coats for $1,500 each. And the woman who started the company doesn't make them. She has people make them. She lives in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, so she's hiring, I think, Amish women. I think there's like a video on her Instagram of Mennonite or Amish women cutting into quilts and making them into clothes. And so I think she thinks this gives her like a pass. that this is fine and good. She talks a lot about sustainability on her website, about how this is sustainable and how she honors these textiles. I've developed what I call the cutter quilt paradox. It doesn't make sense. If you honor these textiles of the past and see them as our rich heritage, why are you cutting them apart? It's a paradox. So I've used images from her website, so far exclusively, because they're really nice pictures. And also, with the exception of one model, the woman who runs this company models all the clothes herself. So in every picture, it's her. And it's like weird. I think it's weird. I think it's cringy. It's just like, really? So what I decided to do, she doesn't make the coats or the quilts, this woman, as far as I can tell. So, yeah. So, well, that's the point, Marianne, is like, of course, that I mean, I don't want them to cut up their quilt either. I mean, I'm making the point that like, it's not good to cut up these quilts. And it's like, if you have a person actually associated with the quilt, I think other people would be like, oh my God, you did that? It's like, yeah. And that's what we're doing to these older quilts too. We just don't think it's the same thing because we can't see the person who made it anyway. So what I did is I took images from this person's website and I cut out digitally, the quilt coat or garment that was on the model. Like I cropped that out, you'll see. And I went and I found really important quilts, and then superimposed them onto the models. Okay, these are sketches right now. They're not finished. But I want to show you what I'm doing here and get your thoughts. Now, there are, I can use images. There's the Fair Use Copyright Act of something allows for, I could read it to you actually, allows for people to use, allows people to use copyrighted material for the purpose of critique, research. It's right here. The Fair Act. It says fair use under the U.S. copyright law. It's the Section 107 of the Copyright Act of whatever year it is. I have to find out. Says this: fair use under the U.S. copyright law permits limited use of portions of a copyrighted work without the copyright owner's permission for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research. Okay. So that's what's going on here. So this is the Raja quilt, and the Raja quilt is an amazing object. It's we'll talk about it like fully at some point. I'm not going to talk about it now, but it's a quilt that was made by prisoners. It's at the Australian, where is it? The Australian National Museum or something. So these are their women who are prisoners on a ship made this quilt in 18 something. It's the Raja quilt, and it's very famous, and we'll talk about it. And so I was like, well, what if that was your coat? What if you didn't know that that was a very important quilt and you found it and you cut it up? And it's like, it's just not, if you don't know what it is, you shouldn't destroy it, because if you do, there's a consequence for that for all of us, because we don't have any possible way anymore to figure out what this was and who made it. And it's so important, right? I mean, just to have the opportunity to understand these stories and these textiles. So I've been playing with some of that, and it's been pretty interesting. And the rough, I don't want it to be perfect. That's why I mentioned the 90s zine style thing. It's what I want to emulate, so it's okay that my skills are really bad. So then I was thinking, what other really famous quilts are out there? Would you get the manifesto? Oh yeah, the quilt nerds. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think I'm gonna charge I don't know, $5 for it or something like that, which would go back into the show. So whatever. Oh, I gotta get some. I'm so sorry. Duh. Sorry, let me go back. Yeah. Okay, and I'm actually gonna mute my, I'm gonna mute my camera because I don't want to be here. Okay. Yeah, so that's the Raja quilt there, imagined as that. So then I was like, okay, yeah, what about like Harriet Powers? Like that would be that would like drive home the point, I think, about what we're doing here. And so, so this, I mean, I just want to get because there's one quilt in particular. Oh yeah, I mentioned the fair use thing because I don't have permission to run these images. It's, in my opinion, it's fair use. This is a very small, it's not even a print run. I mean, it's going to be a stapled, like, glorified flyer, But I am going to ask permission for the last one I'm going to show you, which I think is the most effective one, but it's a lot. And I'm going to ask the person if they're okay with me doing it. But anyway, so here's Harriet Powers as a very cool duster. I think the duster on this woman's website is like $2,200 or something, which is interesting. This is one of the most famous quilts from the Gee's Bend, the Gee's Bend, that initial show at the Whitney. This is a breeches quilt, sometimes it's called, with the work clothes. It's just like reimagining these things. And so I just wanted to kind of run it past you if you think it's, is it too much? Like, I don't know. Okay, and this one's made by Sarah Bond, and it's a reproduction, I'm pretty sure. I have to check this, but this is a Sarah Bond quilt or family quilt. I'm pretty sure this is her remake of her aunt Lavinia's quilt. And so, like, the thing is, that quilt I know is a very specific quilt. It has a provenance, has a story. It's like traceable. It's important to this particular family. But there's nothing, and you know what I'm talking about, Sarah Bond. There's nothing remarkably unique about it in terms of design. Mary Gasperik is like got all these crazy, whatever Hungarian dancers and stuff. This is a Lone Star quilt. It's a beautiful example of one. It's gorgeous. The quilting is very cool. The span quilting, it's lovely. But many of the quilt clothes out there are Lone Star. I mean, this particular image I used from this woman's website was a Lone Star jacket. She was modeling a jacket that was made out of a Lone Star. So I was like, okay, well, how about this one? Like, what about this one? It looks almost exactly like the one she's wearing, but this happens to be this Sarah Bond quilt. Sarah Bond's family has an amazing history of quilt making in America. I mean, it's a very important family story. Sarah Bond is African American, and part of what I'm, concerned about here is that, people who don't know much about quilts might know, that like that is a Gee's Bend quilt because the Gee's Bend quilts are so, popular, so well known. But like, that's not the only style of quilt, made by quilters who are African American. Like that's this quilt was made by an African American person, so it's like, oh, I wouldn't cut up a Gee's Bend quilt, because it's like important history that we, it's all traditional American quilts. So anyway, so then we've got just two more for you. The before and after element is important. Okay, cool, Mariana. That's what I was thinking. I was trying to, and these aren't the final slides. Like I'm real picky about, layout and balance of the slides and whatnot. So then I was like, well, Mary, how about get a taste of your own medicine, And so that's my quilt. and I put it on one of these statement collars available at this woman's website, and I don't like it. It sucks. Like that, it does not feel good. That thing is frivolous. That collar is stupid. I mean, I think if it's in fashion or it's cool, it's just going to be very quick, its existence, like in a fashionable way, because it's just very impractical, I think. So, if it was like a really beautiful jacket, like a dinner jacket, it's one of the few I really believe I'll have my whole life because I love it. I remember making it. I remember everything about that quilt, that it would be a collar in the bottom of somebody's dresser is pretty gross. Yeah. Okay, and then Okay. There's this one. This one, we know this quilt. This was a background quilt for the show at one point. It's the Little John quilt. The two sisters, right, on the Kentucky plantation, who made this when they were enslaved on the Kentucky plantation. It's gorgeous, It's gorgeous. It'd be great. Be great. It would just, and all of the garments on her website are sold out. They're all sold out. They're always already sold out. They go very quickly. So there's that. And some people, they say, I wouldn't cut up a quilt that was really, really fancy. It's like, well, what if somebody really wanted you to? What if they paid you triple the amount that you usually get for a coat like that? It's just like, it's so beautiful. Just like make your own. Just make your own. And then this is the final one. And this is the one where I'm going to ask Sean about this because it's just so intense. But is it not a hideous idea, that eventually something like that, like it makes me want to cry. But the thing is in 30 years, say in 60 years, Sean, this quilt is in a museum. This is called the one for Eric, okay? It was made for Eric Garner. And it won Best in Show at QuiltCon in 2017, or 16, I think. 2018. Yeah. And it's, you'd think like, well, these quilts that win awards, these quilts that are in museums, they're safe. And the ones that are in museums probably are safe from being cut up into clothes. But, we just read that thing about Mary Gasperik and, the boxes under the bed. And fashion is so fickle. And people like, this woman who think it's okay to do this don't really care, I think. And this jacket is, it's sickening, right? To think that it would be. But I don't have any faith that it wouldn't be. And when I am affected by this whole topic, and I'm talking about it all the time, because, it's starting to feel like, I told Eric, it's starting to feel like I'm like a private investigator or something. And I'm surrounded by murder cases all day. And I know that's a lot. All I'm saying is it's depressing. It's really depressing to do this. I'm making these slides of these quilt drops. These are two different pictures from Instagram. And I've talked about this before, I know. But like just stacks and stacks of them every day. And it's just gotta stop. It just has to stop, because when it does stop for now, it will start again, because it happens every 30 years that people think it's okay to cut up our quilts and just for one person's use. For one person to have a jacket, all of that usefulness of that quilt and the history and provenance and story behind it and the meaning of it and its original intended use is gone for your moment of like, and that's why this image, and like I said, I'm going to talk to Sean and be like, brace yourself, this is like super gross, But that's why it's like I'm trying to drive home a point that like you don't know that your quilts are safe from this. You're probably not, but you don't know what you're cutting up. And if this woman didn't have any context, she probably does because these are very famous words, famous last words. But if you didn't have context for it and you were just like, whatever, then a quilt that is like very important in like American quilt history and just it's a work of art, okay? It's just gonna get sliced apart. So that's like part of what I'm working on, and it just really is. It sucks. I'm so tired of it, and so the manifestos. I'm gonna print off everything I've written now. I've got a strong outline, and I've got you know, a lot of it written. This one I think is particularly good. And like I said, I'm not going to name the person. I'm going to cover the faces. You know, I'm not out to cancel people. That's the thing. That's part of the thing in the manifesto. I'm not out to cancel individuals. I'm not going to say people's names. They're easy to find, obviously, I know, but I'm not out to cancel anybody. I'm out to cancel an industry, because it is an industry now of destroying quilts to make accessories for your dog. And so I'm not going to say names. And I don't want to, you know, take away anybody's livelihood, but there are other ways to make money. God damn it. Enough. So, yeah. Anyway. Bleh. I don't even know. Anyway, gosh. Oh, and the other thing that is very important is that I take on every argument they have for doing it and refute it. And the main argument is that, well, and I've heard it from several designers specifically now, is that, well, if I made a quilt and in 50 years it was languishing in a flea market, you know, I'd want somebody to do something with it. And my rebuttal to that is, you're not everyone. Not everyone is you. So nobody I know who's making quilts now would be like totally cool with that. And the other, you know, the argument of like, you know, well, it's giving it a second life. You know, if a quilt is intact, its life has not come to an end. It is useful for many people to use as a bed cover, as a picnic blanket, as a sheet, as a da-da-da. It has a lot of use for a lot of people. But when you cut it up, it is useful for you, one person, and it's over. So this idea that it's like giving it a second chance at life, unless it is rags, don't come to me with that. So anyway, so it's going to be very, very methodical. And it's going to be intense, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for it. And, you know, I'm like, it's interesting. I am sensitive, and I'm worried all the time, you know, about like, oh God, you know, I'm going to get trolled online. Of course, it's happened before, but like, I've never been more like unafraid. Like, I'm just completely like I can go with God on this. I'm just not, I don't care. I don't care if people are like, how dare you? Like, this is my, you know, like, what, I just don't care. I'm like, no, this is bigger than me. It's not about me. This is about something way bigger. So like, I don't give a shit. But the thing is, I got to finish it now, because if it is an emergency, which it is, you know, I gotta finish this thing, and I gotta do my video, and it's just gonna be very simple. I'm just gonna be sitting here. I'm not gonna like do fancy editing. I'm gonna drop in images where I need to drop them in, but that's it. So anyway, so y'all, thank you so much for being in here. And the thing is too, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're all saying what I'm feeling. Good. Oh, that's cool, Sue. Yeah, that's cool. So I just do want to say that I appreciate you, you know, being here and listening to. I talk about it a lot, and I know. And the only thing I'm kind of nervous about is like, oh my God, are the nerds gonna get like really tired of me just like on this? I mean, you're a quilt nerd, so I don't think so. But it is a program. It is a show. And, you know, I don't want to burn you out on it. But it's just been an interesting thing to just like continue to see and think about this and care more and more about it. And so I can't get it out of my head, and I can't kind of put it down until I put it down. So I appreciate you like being like, okay, well, but at this time in the show, you know, there's the intro quilt, and there's the say hellos. And then there's the show, and then there's the part of the show where Mary talks about quilts and fashion. And sometimes I skip it, and sometimes I don't. But anyway, so thanks so much. This has been this has been a 3-hour show. No, 2 hours and 15 minutes. You know, we could end on another note. You know what? Here's what we're gonna do. We are gonna end on enough note. We are, and I don't mean to cut off the conversation either, but like, you know, I don't want to start crying again. So let's figure something out. What I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up something from my desktop. And it is going to be... Oh, I know. Look at this. How about this? This is great. This is something nice. So look at this. This is a book of poems by Lucille Clifton. And it's going into a folder of quilts and books. Oh, wait. Yeah, oh, no. Hey, I can keep that on the screen at the same time that I'm on it. It's almost like a green screen again. It's almost like we have a green screen. Hang on. You just go away. Just go away. Yeah, so poems, 1987 to 1990, Lucille Clifton. Lucille Clifton is a great American poet, and this is a book that I have. And I was thinking about quilts and books. They're in literature so much, and they're all these different places. And I was like, oh yeah, that wonderful cover of the Lucille Clifton book of poems, and I have to find it, and it's down in storage. And I was like, that's one of the ones I have to go down and get. So I have to dig through the storage locker and get some of my quilts. Where I'm going to put them, I have no idea. But we're going to find them. And I just realized, and so you can find this book used online, of course. And I haven't read poetry in a while. It's good sometimes to do that. It really is. It's good sometimes to do it. I was at a workshop years ago in Umbria, Italy. It was a playwrights workshop through La Mama in New York, the La Mama Theater in New York City. I applied to go to this, playwrights workshop because I was working in the theater here in Chicago, writing a one-woman show that I eventually did. And so I was working on this, and I applied, and I got to go to Umbria, and the person who led the workshop was none other than Lynn Nottage. If you know playwrights in America, Lynn Nottage. She's just huge. And this was kind of before she super blew up, with a bunch of Intimate Apparel was one of her big, anyway. So, but I'll never forget, we were in one of the workshop sessions, and we did this exercise, and one of the things she had us do was write down, our 5 favorite classical musicians, our 5 favorite, poets, our 5 favorite playwrights, all these different cultural things, your 5 favorites. And on some of these things, these questions, I didn't have, I didn't know, what are my 5 favorite writers, our 5 favorites. And at the end, she said, if you don't have 5, you should get them. A person is good. It's good for a person to know poetry well enough, or just to have 5 favorites that you just love. Certainly favorite authors. Oh my God, I love. It's who are your heroes? I want to be able to answer that question. And I can't. But I'll never forget that. She's 5 favorite novels, and I was like, I don't have 5 favorites, and it's sort of a really cool task to get them. Because that means it's kind of an exercise in who you are, and it's an exercise in knowing the world and enjoying everything. It's oh my God, 5 novels that are my favorites means I have to read a bunch of novels. Cool. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, a palette cleanser is going to be the picture of the Christmas tree that I put up. So that's what I'm finding right now. Finding the Christmas tree that I made. That I put together to surprise Eric when he came home. And it looks pretty good. Photos. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Oh, it looks pretty good. Okay, here it is. Okay, present. Do you all have Christmas tree? Do you do it? Do you do the thing? Christmas tree? Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to go like this, and download that. Real Christmas tree, fake Christmas tree. I'm trying to get that palette cleanser going. Okay, here we go. You all are just the best, and I'm so glad that we were here together today. Of course. Let me get small. I'm going to go away. Okay, here, go away. Okay. There it is. That's my living room. I'm looking at it. That's what I'm looking at. I am against this wall. That's over there. And that's the Christmas tree. And that's my sock monkey, Pendennis. I put a Santa hat on him, but it was in the box of Christmas decorations, which is very small. And usually he has a little cotton ball. It's made out of paper. Just one second. It's made out of paper. This sock monkey is he's my little mascot, and he's been with me a very long time. So this is the, I don't know. I don't like buying. I like making really bad Christmas decorations. So this definitely counts. Okay. So here he is. There's Pendennis. God, Pendennis, you're on the show. So this is falling apart. Oh yeah, I do have a little string to put on his head. I mean, to put on his chin. But anyway, so that thing fell off. So here, Pendennis is he needs help. Anyway, so and yes, this stocking, I have definitely thought about it. It's very old. I have no idea where I got it, and it's either patchwork that was made for this, or it was a quilt that was cut up. Like, I took it out of the box and I was like, well, that's ironic. I was like, Eric, oh God. Anyway, and I mean, it's there, and like, what am I? Well, I'm not going to get back on that. I have. We're not going to talk about that again, but I have solutions for these objects that have been made already that can't be remade. Okay, into quilts. Okay, let's see. What else can I show you? Well, that's my little Christmas tree. I don't know if you all watch Big Mouth, but it's a really great show that's a cartoon for adults, and that's a little character that we love so much. So I made a little ornament out of her. Yeah, anyway, that's it. That's my Christmas tree. And I don't have a Christmas tree stand, so that is a garbage can. Okay, listen, everybody. Thank you so much. You're the best. You're just the best. And I so appreciate you. And thanks for Mary Gasperik. That was great. Mary Gasperik. And then we looked at the tattoo quilt, and then we talked about some different art direction. And I appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day. And I think I'll see you tomorrow night for something completely different. Okay, y'all. Yeah, I'll see you next time.